We've been getting a slow drip of news about HBO's TV adaptation of The Last of Us, and fans are pretty annoyed about the casting, and rumor has it, the cast is annoyed about the fan backlash. In this video, we'll be looking at what we know about the show and why it's got the fans and the cast fuming. Let's begin by laying down the facts as we know them. While we don't have a firm release date for the show yet, we do know that it will be sometime next year, and that the show wrapped up filming last month. The Last of Us is going to be following along the plot of the first game, which saw Joel and his daughter figure Ellie embark on a cross-country trip through the US. Oh, and the world has been ravaged by clickers, who are basically zombies but different. The first season has been written mostly by Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin. While Neil has become something of a divisive figure among fans, Mazin should become a welcome addition to the writer's room, sporting accolades for his work on Chernobyl. Among the staff that this show is borrowing from the games is Gustavo Santaolalla, who composed the scores for both the first Last of Us and its prequel. The only thing left to talk about is the cast. HBO recently announced who will be playing the star duo, and along with the rest of the cast, they've become the subject of some internet fireworks. So who's cast in the show right now? Some of the first cast members announced in the show were Jeffrey Pierce and Merle Dandridge. Both of these characters were part of the game's motion capture cast, but only Dandridge is reprising her role as Marlene, the head of the Fireflies and a major antagonist for the show. Pierce had star billing in the game as Joel's brother Tommy, but he has conceded the TV role to Luna. Meanwhile, Pierce is playing an original character who's apparently pretty important, according to the actor. Elsewhere in the previously announced cast, Anna Torv is playing Tess, a friend and business partner of Joel's. Storm Reed, Murray Bartlett, and Nick Offerman are playing Riley, Abel, Frank, and Bill, who are minor characters in the games but will have their roles expanded in the show. And finally, we come to the 1-2 punch that was the most recent cast announcement: Joel and Ellie's video game actors. Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson are in the show, but they're not reprising their roles from the game. They'll be playing different characters instead, and we don't know anything about who those characters will be. As for the core duo, we have Pedro Pascal as Joel and Bella Ramsey as Ellie. And now we come to the fan backlash. We've known for years that there was going to be a TV adaptation of The Last of Us, but it's taken a while for any details about the show to surface. That's given fans plenty of time to dream up their perfect version of the show, with their ideal cast. When it came to Joel and Ellie in particular, Nikolaj Coster-Waldau and Caitlin Dever seemed to be the chosen ones to bring the pair to life. So when the casting was announced and nothing turned out according to fans' wishes, a riot started. As we've yet to get a look at the cast's performances in the roles, most of the backlash is focused on how little the actors resemble the characters they portray. Pedro Pascal doesn't exactly have the build of Joel, and Ramsey's only resemblance to Ellie is that they're both little girls. While Ramsey's most significant acting credit was portraying a firebrand young lord in Game of Thrones, that alone seems to not be good enough for the game's fan base. It doesn't help that the actors who portrayed these characters in the game are in the cast of the show, but they're doing other stuff instead of reprising their roles. While Ashley Johnson has clearly aged out of playing Ellie, Troy Baker could try to fill Joel's shoes. He has about as good a chance as doing so as Pedro Pascal does. The cast probably isn't enjoying this. While none of the actors who are currently on the receiving end of the backlash have made any public statements, there are reports that this is starting to get to them. Pascal is no stranger to annoyed fans. He was on Game of Thrones and the Star Wars franchise, but Ramsey and some of the other newer actors must be feeling the pressure. This doesn't seem to be a risk that you take when joining an adaptation with a vocal fan base. It wasn't that long ago that some of the more enraged parts of the Last of Us fan base were sending death threats to Neil Druckmann, Ashley Johnson, and Laura Bailey over the plot to The Last of Us Part 2. What's our take on the controversy? There's a big difference between movies and video games, and they expect different things from the actors. Just because an actor can play a character in a mocap studio doesn't mean they're the right actor to play that character on a movie set. When casting for a video game, you go for the actors who are accomplished in video games, and Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson are two of the best in the game. But when you're casting for TV, you go for the best TV actors. Pedro Pascal has had multiple extremely high-profile roles. Getting his teeth knocked out on Game of Thrones and blasting people on The Mandalorian are just his most famous parts. Bella Ramsey hasn't been around long enough to build a career, but that's also true of most actors her age. That being said, she was a fan favorite in her minor role on Game of Thrones. At the same time, we do sympathize with the fan base's concerns. Video games just don't have a very good track record when being adapted to the silver screen. Halo fans are being stung at this very moment by their TV show. That show was recently disavowed by a co-creator of the first Halo game, and there are worse examples to choose from, like the time they turned Tomb Raider into an Angelina Jolie vehicle, or when an alcoholic trip was released under the Super Mario Bros. Name, or even the time when Jake Gyllenhaal traipsed through the desert as the Prince of Persia. But those failures don't guarantee the failure of this one. HBO has had a few misses in their TV history. The cast is solid on paper, and a lot of the team from the games is resources involved in the show's production. This is actually HBO's first show based on a video game, and we imagine that they wouldn't have done this without intention or thought. Judge the finished product, people. All that being said, there are some red flags. Even though we reassured you that The Last of Us is safe in the hands of HBO, they're not the only cooks in this kitchen. After all, the franchise and its IP belongs to Sony, which means that this project also involves Sony Pictures Entertainment. That is indeed the studio that brought you Morbius and brought it to you again because of the memes. It's not really fair to Sony to reduce them to their misfires with Spider-Man and his villains, but they haven't always been totally forthcoming with their properties. When letting other studios work with intellectual property they own, they exert a lot of control over various aspects of the production. And Sony might not even be the biggest problem here. The Last of Us's biggest problem would be that there's simply too many cooks in the kitchen. The show is a joint production between Sony Pictures Entertainment, Sony Interactive Entertainment, and Naughty Dog themselves. While we can probably count on Naughty Dog to have a mostly positive influence on the project, Sony is a megacorp, and their two branches may conflict with each other, not to mention their conflicts with HBO and Naughty Dog. This is a unique situation for HBO. They've gained a reputation for letting their showrunners and writers' room drive their shows, and even when doing adaptations, they've always had good relationships with the creators of their source material. That's the approach that allowed HBO to produce GOAT-tier shows like The Sopranos, The Wire, and the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones. The level of outside interference they might encounter in producing The Last of Us will be unprecedented in their history on TV. Come to think of it, The Last of Us isn't Sony's only exclusive property that's being adapted. Naughty Dog's own Uncharted movie made an unsuccessful voyage through the box office, and we have confirmation of a God of War series being in the works. Even Twisted Metal of all franchises is getting a TV show. How will they turn out? The Last of Us might be our canary in the coal mine for all of Sony's upcoming TV shows. But that's the last of our coverage of The Last of Us TV show. What do you think of the casting? Is it really a death knell for the series, or do you think HBO made the right calls? And what else are you looking forward to or dreading on the show? Let us know in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.